Welcome to Spiritual Truths with your host, Kerry-Marie. Today, I'm delighted to have with me Charlie Seaman from Vancouver, Canada. Charlie has been a working medium for over 20 years. He also teaches on the SNUI and has been doing so for 12 years. Today, Charlie will join us and he'll be sharing with us about how he became a medium, some stories, and also passing on some valuable information to you about mediumship. Welcome, Charlie. It's so good to see you. And I believe it's good afternoon in Canada and it's good morning here in
Yes,
New Zealand. So it's really
thank
wonderful
you.
we can connect this way. I first met you, well, I haven't actually met you before. I've seen a photo of you on Facebook. I haven't met you like over Zoom, but I heard you through SNUI. And so you're in Vancouver, Canada, and you have a teacher, been a teacher, I think, on for 12 years. Is that right? Or more?
That's correct.
Yeah, for 12 years. And I was really, really impressed with your mediumship. I'll be honest, it was outstanding. And I love, no, it's true. And I love, because I'm so passionate about being a medium, I am mediumship on how it can help others and serve spirit and help others in such an empowering way. When you see another great medium working, it's heartwarming. So you made my heart really warm, and that's the truth. So I was so excited when you said that you were going to become part of this podcast, Spiritual Truth. So I warm heartedly welcome you. And I'd like to ask you, Charlie, a little bit about yourself, because I don't know, I've never met you before. I've just witnessed your mediumship through SNUI. So you can just tell us a bit about yourself.
Well, where do I begin? I suppose I begin 20 years ago now. And at that time, I was in my early 50s. And I was a regular North American guy, just a regular fellow, watching the sporting events, going to the pub, having a family, having two children, now three grandchildren. And towards the end of 2003, I got a phone call from Toronto, and it was my brother-in-law. And he said to me, Esther has cancer, and the doctors have given her 2 to 4 weeks to live. She was my little sister.
Oh,
And that spurred a change in me because of what happened and the circumstances surrounding her passing. She had about 2 weeks from the time she found out that she had ovarian cancer. Immediately put in the hospital. She knew that time was up. Everyone knew. But yet, she was the most gracious person in the room. When I flew from Vancouver to Toronto, she welcomed me in open arms from her bed. Charlie, how are you? I'm so happy you're here. And I'm, oh, anyway, it went downhill from there. All the people that came to see her, she greeted in the same way. And we were dumbfounded at her positivity of who she was and what was about to happen to her. So in this hospital room, it began. There were four people in the room: my wife, myself, Esther's husband, Mark, and Esther. She's lying in the bed. I was standing at the foot of the bed. And I do have to say, I'd always been entranced and curious about the spirit world. I didn't know anything about it, but I had a natural affinity to it. So as I stood there observing this scene, I began to feel a presence around me. And this spirit, invisible presence, took my hand and literally lifted my hand up near my heart. And I remember thinking, I'm okay. We need the help over there, as I was physically propelled backwards to the wall. And immediately, my brother in law, who was a very, very conservative lawyer, doesn't believe in any of this. He went into a seizure of some sort. He stood there for about 30 seconds, vibrating up and down. And he was, it was all very peaceful. It was okay. And he looked at me when it was over and he said, "What did you do?" And I said, "Well, I didn't do anything. I didn't." And he said, "Wow, I feel absolutely marvelous right now." He says, I feel wonderful. Meanwhile, he's standing in a room where his wife is about to pass away, a woman that he loved dearly. And I thought, that's okay. That's okay. And that helped him get through, I think, about the next 3 days. And I believe that that was a spontaneous trance healing, which, okay, I was there. I felt it. What did I have to do with it? I don't believe I had anything to do with it.
Right. But
So anyway,
did they use your energy? Would you say the spirit world used your energy?
well, see, at that time, I didn't have any concept.
Right.
I didn't know that. I still don't really know that. What was my energy, their energy? I felt the energy leave me and go towards the bed. And I was referring to my sister when we need help over there. But in the spiritual intelligence of it all, it went to the man who needed it the most, which was Mark.
Fascinating. That's fascinating, don't you think?
Well, it is fascinating because that's probably the smallest thing that happened.
Wow.
So the next scene we see is about 3 days later in January in Toronto, where the wind is howling, the snow is coming down sideways, and we're going to plan a funeral. Go to the funeral parlor, make some arrangements. Okay, so the funeral director took us into the room where they keep all the coffins, and they have nice little pathways winding through the coffins and lights and fairies and all those nice pretty things. And what do we do here? And so I'm standing there, and suddenly I felt something grab me by the back of the neck and start to push me, and it pushed me around the rows of coffins, these little winding pathways. And I felt like it was the energy of my sister. It felt like Esther to me. And what's going on here? I don't know, but I'm following. And then it stopped. And it stopped in front of a particular coffin, which just happened to match the woodwork in her house. So I called out to the husband and his friend, said, "Come here." Now, remember, they don't really appreciate what I do or was
Yeah.
about to do. And so I explained what had happened. And I said, and it stopped right here. And my brother in law's friend said, "Mark, Charlie's right. That's the right one for her."
Oh,
So
wow.
that's
So
where
she
she
chose her
wound up.
coffin. She chose her coffin.
She chose her own coffin, in my belief, certainly. Remember, I'm not a medium at this time. I don't have any awareness of what is happening. But yet she was able to do that and communicate. And then the energy started again and it pushed me around some more and more. And it stopped me in front of what do you call those things? An hour, a sundial.
What's that?
And the sundial was
Oh,
mounted on a
sundial.
stand.
Sorry. Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
Sundial, yeah, mounted on a stand, and it was ridiculously expensive. No, the money was not a problem here. But so, Mark, here, this is where it stopped me this time. And he looked at it and said, "Oh, that's right. We need to make sure we bury her in the sun because that's what she loved."
Mhm.
Okay, that's how you take it. So we go to the cemetery in the limo, and her daughter, who is 16 years old, is with us. And she's very, very angry and upset, of course. She's lost her mom. And
Mm,
I remember as I got out of the limo, I need to back off here and just stay away.
mm,
Let them do what they need to do to
mm.
pick the plot. No, there's a foot of snow. It's coming down sideways. It's horrible out. And the daughter, she walked over to a spot and she pointed on the ground and said, I want her buried right here, right there. And the funeral director said, no problem. And he looked on his map and he said, we're in section 14. And I remembered Esther leaving home when she was 14. Little synchronicity. And he dug up the marker for the plot, and it was plot number 295. Now, in my spiritual awareness, my life force and life path numbers are 7 and 9, and I follow those. I let them guide me to where I need to be.
Oh,
In a
wow.
purchase, where I am in life, if it's a 2 and a 9 and a 7 and 5, all of those numbers equal 9 and 7. So just follow it, just do it. Came back from the cemetery, walked up the laneway to her house, and I looked at the address 952, 9 and 7. And then I thought, oh no, the hospital room was 925. So we have three in a row within the space
Mm,
of an hour. And that really made me start to think and comprehend what was going on. Now, came back to Vancouver, told my daughters their aunt was gone. Even after 20 years, it still gets to me.
oh,
So anyway, but it's okay. It's okay because now my mother was 80 years old at the time, and she and my sister fought most of their lives. But yet my sister was the one who came back and tried to pull the family back together again. And now she's gone. I got a call from my mother's best friend, said, you need to call your mom. She's sick. I said, well, what's going on? She says, no, you have to phone your mother. Okay. Phone mom. All right. 2 months later, mom has cancer. Same cancer, same place. Don't know the outcome. Hmm, what do we do now? So in those days, we were reading tarot cards.
yeah.
And a lady turned up at the house one Tuesday, unusually only one person.
Hmm.
So we went upstairs to the games room and we walked into the games room and we both saw a big orb of light. I want to say about the size of a basketball. And it was just hovering in the corner of the room. I looked at Pam and I said, you see that? She said, yeah, what is that? Out of the orb of light came a face.
Mm,
Now, what we were seeing was in black and white.
wow.
Face was an old woman with a squarish jaw and frizzy hair. And I said to my friend, I have never seen a picture of my great grandmother, but I believe this to be her. She always promised she would never, ever leave my mom. Unfortunately, she died in 1941. So here we are 64 years later. Me telling my friend, I believe that's my mom, my mother's grandmother, and she's come to tell my mom she's here. Okay. So I was the lucky guy who had to fly back to Toronto to take mom to the doctor. And the doctor verified the diagnosis and gave my mother 6 months to live. Whereupon I said to mom, I told mom the story. I said, do you have a picture of Emmeline? And she says, oh, yeah, yeah, I've got one you can have. An old lady with a square jaw, frizzy white hair. And I brought that picture back to Vancouver and I showed it to Pam. And she said, "Oh, that's the lady we saw in the games room a couple of months ago." Now, mediumship, well, there we are, started. But I didn't know
Yes.
that.
No.
And I didn't have any ability to trust the feelings. You know, the guy, North American guy,
Yeah.
sports and all that stuff. We don't have feelings. I'm sure you talk to your own husband about the same things, men.
I think most women do. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So that's quite normal. But yet, here we are understanding that there's something else there. Now,
Mm.
I do have to say that I did begin going to the local spiritualist church in 2004. I never once thought I was a medium. I never thought once that I could deliver a communication.
Mhm.
Yeah, well,
You
that's
never,
other people. That's wow.
you don't plan these things, do you? Or I never planned it either. You don't plan it.
No, we don't plan it. So I went for 3 years like that, never thinking. And I mean, I was drawn to it. I had to go.
Mm.
I had to go and I had to listen to all the communications. And then one day I was at the church and it was very, very busy and they were doing readings that day. And one of the ladies who was helping out said, "Oh, it's too bad it was so busy. I would really love to get a reading." And there was four of us sitting there, and all of a sudden, I felt something strange, and my eyelids began to flutter like that. Oh, what's going on? And then I saw someone, so I started to talk, and my friend kept saying yes. Oh, and then when I was finished, she said, "I've got to go home now and tell my neighbor's wife that he's been here. He died 3 weeks ago." Oh, okay. And that's how it began.
Wow.
That's how it began.
You
And
didn't
then
force it. You didn't force it. It just opened up.
exactly, exactly. But I didn't even understand what I was opening up to because unfortunately, I didn't get very much support in the beginning. So people wouldn't talk to me. I could not find a local circle to join. I didn't even know what a circle was.
Hmm.
No one seemed to want me. There were many, many female mediums 20 years ago, and there were very, very few heterosexual men. So I
Right.
felt like I was pushed away because I'm a guy.
Yes.
I mean, you're
Mm.
not supposed to be the sensitive type, but I am.
Mm.
And
It's stigma. It's
recognize
stigma, isn't it?
I recognize now that I have been sensitive all my life, but I didn't know it.
Mm. Mm.
It was never developed, it was never encouraged to simply, as the best advice I was ever given by another medium when I really was confused, to spiritualize everything and allow your own philosophy to unfold.
Oh, I like that.
I do too. I love it.
Spiritualize
She
everything,
was
allow
taught,
to. Wow, I like that.
yeah, she was taught by Leslie Flint,
Mm. So
and she's a
spiritualize,
very
is that what you said? Spiritualize everything and for what is it? Form your own philosophy
spiritualize everything and allow your own philosophy to
and allow
unfold,
you. Okay,
which means we
great.
walk our own path.
Right.
And when I first went to the Arthur Findlay College in London, School of Mediumship and Psychic Sciences in 2008, and marvelous things happened when I was at the college.
Mm.
Absolutely marvelous.
Mm.
And I'm still there. So I'm going again in September with my wife, who's going to go for the very first time.
How has your wife found it? How has she found the mediumship and you changing and things like that?
Very difficult at first.
Mm.
She was born Catholic, and they
Right.
don't do that. And she's a large family, and she didn't want the rest of the family to know. because, mediumship was, some people it's okay, and other people, we don't do that around here.
That's
Her
interesting. You
mom
know
was very,
why? That's interesting. Because my next podcast is going to be called Coming Out of the Closet. And Andre's going to be interviewing me. And I was born into a big Catholic family. So isn't that interesting?
well, isn't it interesting that eventually Eileen Davies, wonderful,
Mm,
wonderful medium from Scotland,
amazing. Yeah.
who has been my main teacher over the years, physical teacher. Lost my train of thought while I was talking about Eileen now.
She's just incredible. In fact, I talked about my visit to the Arthur Fundy College, and I was talking about somebody that talked about names and addresses and about a budgie that came out of the budgie's name, and it was her I was referring to. She's just phenomenal, and she'd be such she's one of the best. You know what I mean? You want to be the best, you learn by the best.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's how I teach as well. When people come into my class on the SNUI, I don't look at them as beginners, advanced, or intermediate.
Hmm.
What I tell them is we are all the same. We're just in different places on the same road.
Love
So
it.
where you are in your mediumship is where I start to work with you to help you get to the next step.
So I'm going towards it's naturally going towards that. So you're teaching now. So you tell us a little bit about your teaching. And so obviously you develop yourself. From what I hear, that you had spiritual experience. You naturally just started, you gave us a reading at the church, and then you went to Arthur Findlay College. And I feel that somebody who's sort of almost been a mentor to you is Eileen Davies, and she's an amazing person. And so and also that sounds to me what you're saying to me is you keep on learning yourself because you keep on learning. You don't just
Yes.
sit back and think that's it. I keep on learning more, which is great. And so now you're empowering others by teaching them. So you can just tell a little bit about your SNUI teaching and how we can help other people and encourage them to develop because a lot of people they get stuck. They don't know where to go from there. So if you can just tell us a bit about that,
Mhm.
Charlie, that'd be great.
Well, during my time of being really, really confused, we didn't have digital downloads and
Mm,
CDs were sometimes hard to get. And I had heard about this exercise called sitting in the power.
mm,
And the only audio CD that was available, if you could find one, would have been done by Glenn Edwards.
mm-hmm.
Now, I decided to leave that church where I started out because I felt after 2 years waiting to be in a circle that they just really didn't want me there. So I put that thought out to the universe. What are we going to do? Within a week, two people came to me with a copy of that CD.
Wow.
So for a period of 1 year, all I had spiritually was the voice of Glenn Edwards.
He's incredible, isn't he?
Eventually,
He's incredible, Glenn.
uh,
Yeah, amazing. Mm.
in 2013, I flew with a group to Aberdeen, Scotland to see Eileen, and we were to be taught by Eileen, Scott Milligan, the physical tutor, and Glenn Edwards. So I had the pleasure of working with him for only 1 week, but yet he is still such a powerful influence on my mediumship. We must sit and we must understand and ask the other world to teach us.
Right, so that's sitting in the power to you.
Well, no, sitting in the power is one aspect of development. The other aspect of development for me is the attunement portion,
So
where
what
we
if you
are asking the,
them to come in? We'll come to the attunement. I just want to go back to the power. So what can you explain what sitting in the power is first, and then we'll go to attunement.
okay, so for me, sitting in the power is sitting in the power of self.
Right.
We're not asking for any communication. We're not asking for guides. and helpers. We're not even asking for God at that point.
Okay.
We're sitting in the energy of ourselves. And every time we sit, we go deeper and deeper into that spiritual energy of our own being. And, it doesn't take hours and hours each day. It's important to have a regular practice of it for maybe 30 minutes in my world, where we're grounding, we're centering, we're expanding our being energetically to the universe. That is sitting in the power.
Beautiful.
When it comes to the attunement, we are trying to find that quiet place within our being where we can meet the other world. And for me, that means I want a calm, quiet mind with no thought and a meeting place and an invitation because we can't do it without them.
No.
But if they don't know that we need them, they're not going to be around. They're all around us, they're within us. It's not like they come from thousands and thousands of miles on their little light beam. They're right there.
It's
And the more
interesting.
we recognize,
I just I understand you just introduced something different to me. So I understand them being all around us, but you said they're within us. What do you mean by that?
within our energy field.
Oh, within our energy field. I've got you. Right.
Yeah,
Okay. No, I
not our
understand.
physical selves. No.
Okay, because I was a bit confused then. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's an invitation. Now, one of the things that I have learned so strongly from Eileen is that there is no arrival on the platform. We could never say that we've made it. After 40 odd years of mediumship for her, she still sits 40 minutes every day to attune to the other world.
Before she
There
does
is no
platform,
arrival.
before she does platform,
Every day, every 365 days a year. That's what she does
she sits in the
because
power
she
and
is,
then it tunes.
yeah.
Mm.
So the greatest downfall that I see in today's world is that some people seem to think that mediumship can be made easy.
Mm.
Mediumship itself is not that difficult. We are using our psychic senses that we use in this physical world.
Yes,
All mediumship is a result of psychic faculty.
yes, it is.
Okay. So we have to work it out. Sometimes we need to interpret it. Sometimes we're very confused because we don't necessarily understand the information.
Mm. I get that.
That is
Mhm.
why we need to continually work at it to get a finer, more delicate focus on that extraneous energy that's all around us. It's
I'd like
like
to,
looking through a kaleidoscope and adjusting the dial until you get that picture perfect.
right. So almost like a pure channel,
You try to be,
the best
but
you can.
yeah, to come back to the easy mediumship, people are, well, in 12 weeks, you'll be a medium and it'll be all wonderful. It'll be love and light, and you can go out and make lots of money doing readings. None of that's true. And people accept that because those who are just starting out, they don't know where to turn.
Mm.
They'll take the first pretty face they find
Mm. Interesting.
and say, oh, this is my medium.
It's interesting when I talked to my podcast about the development, I said, so when I went to other Finny College, well, I think Andre asked me, were you an instant medium? I said, no, I wasn't. It's like you go to the gym and you get a program, it's just constant working and working and working and working and
Mm-hmm.
strengthening. Yeah, that's what it's the same thing. It takes a lot of work. Just something I was going to ask you about when you said, just to clarify, when you said that Eileen Davis says no such thing as an arrival at the platform. What is it what you said? Can you just
Mm-hmm.
clarify that? I'm not quite sure what that means.
Meaning, meaning that we have to do our basic fundamental work all the time. We can never go up there and say, oh, I've got this. Here's my lines. we have to ask for the lines when we're on the platform. We have
Mm,
to ask for the energy to draw close and impress us. And if we, let's say, if I took a month off of sitting in the power and attuning, well, I wouldn't have any information
mm,
because I'd be doing it all about myself instead
right.
of the other world. And you see, here's an example of that. When I was first starting out, I had my first in church demonstration on a Friday night, all by myself. Well, I have to admit, I was terrified. Couldn't get my nerves under control. Couldn't find the power. Couldn't do anything. Had to get up there. And so I messed up a couple of communications and I took a break from the stage. And as I walked off, a fellow walked up to me who I kind of vaguely knew, vaguely. And he said to me, "Your sister's here." Oh, okay. Yeah. And she tells me she was born on June the 1st. Yes. And she had brown hair and brown eyes. Yes. And she knows you still have cake for her every year on her birthday, which
Oh,
we've done for the last 20 years.
wow.
Yes. I'm blown away. And he said, and the reason she's come is that when you go back up on that stage, would you please ask her to help you?
Mm.
You see, I was trying to do it all by myself because I really didn't understand at that point how any of it worked.
I don't understand. I felt
And
so
since,
emotional when you're telling me that. I just could feel it so strongly.
well, she's been an enormous influence ever since. So has Glyn in the time that he's passed.
Yes.
I received a brilliant message last month from a lady in Australia. Evidence of Glyn everywhere. She didn't know Glyn, but I did. You know,
Mm.
I'm blessed. You see, we can create our own blessings in our life if we know where to look and how to look. But how do we do that? We have to sit quietly and we have to ask for the help. And we
Mm.
have to trust what comes and we'll give it. And if we get it wrong, it's not wrong. It just means someone said no. Okay, so what's no mean? No means, oh, I'm sorry, I don't understand. Well, you go back to the other world and ask them to clarify it. We stay out of
Mm.
our own mind
Mm.
as much as is possible.
That's that thinking. Get think out of the equation. An
Hmm.
amazing medium told me that. Keep think out of it. And I find when you interpret it, you can get tripped up.
Well, yeah,
You
you know,
interpret, yeah.
if you happen to receive things symbolically,
Mm.
you can get tripped up. I was teaching a class on the SNUI. Uh, the medium was a gentleman from New Brunswick, Canada, and he'd made a link with a lady in England, and he was doing fine. And then he said, "I have a green crocodile on a leash." It's like, all right, what the hell is that? And I'm listening, I'm tuned in, and I interrupted the two of them, and I said, "Let me see if I can understand the green crocodile." And I said, and my thought had gone to a a band called the Irish Rovers that were popular in Toronto back in the 70s. And they sang a song about green crocodiles and humpty-back camels and long-necked geese. That came into my head, and I felt, oh, the pub. Let's try this. All right. This gentleman spent a lot of time in the pub. That's correct.
Um,
That gentleman, when he had too much to drink, came home and he was horribly abusive. Yes. Crocodile, the teeth.
so it all made sense.
It all made sense because I did not try to work it out.
Mm.
I asked to be shown what it was, and then I heard the music.
So
You see,
sometimes do you find that when that happens, for me, you give something and then later on they go home and realize, or even later on the reading, it makes sense. It makes no sense to
Mm,
me, but it actually eventually does somehow to them. Do you find that?
I do on occasion. I had an occasion where I gave a gentleman a name. He was from Norway. And I told him it was his great grandfather. And he said, I'm sorry, I don't know who my great grandfather was. And I gave some more information. He came back a week later to the church and he said, please come sit and talk to me. And I thought, oh, what's going on? He was a great big man. He's about 6'6", just massive guy. Well, he's mad at me or something. And he said, well, he said, you gave me the name, the letters WH is what I had given. He said, I didn't know what you meant. He said, but I do have all the family jewelry from the last several hundred years at home.
Mm.
So I opened up the jewelry box and I started trying on some rings. And I put my finger into one. He said my finger wouldn't go. And I looked inside and I found another ring that was stuck inside of it. Been there for years and years and years. I don't have to tell you what the initials on the ring were. You already know.
Mm. It's incredible.
WH.
Isn't it incredible?
Yeah, because the medium does not know the
No,
answers. We are not an answer machine. We're an
no.
information machine.
When information, that's what I say to people. I'm the messenger. And I don't want information from you. I just want confirmation from you.
Yeah.
Mm.
Please give me
Confirmation,
a yes.
information.
Please give me a no if it's a no.
And yeah,
And if it's a no,
I often have people come back to me later, quite frequently. It happens to me a lot, what you're saying, that sort of thing. It all makes sense further down the line.
well,
Things with jewelry and yeah, yeah.
we haven't given it in a way that the individual understands.
Mm,
We have given it in a way we understand it.
mm.
And hopefully the two are the same, but they're certainly not always. People forget you put it in a different way. We're not trying to manipulate the information. We're trying to be as true as possible to the words of the Spirit.
Oh, yeah, authentic. That's that we talked about something before we had the podcast. And I talked to Matthew Smith about this once, and I said the difference between an okay medium and a great medium is trust. And I think that trust is really important of the spirit world because we give information, we pass it on. It doesn't have to make sense to us, but it needs to make sense to the other person. And the more trust we have in the spirit and the communication, the more authentic we are. Does that resonate with you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I was doing a demonstration in England via Zoom, and I'd connected with a lady, and it was all going along just fine. And I said something to her about her siblings. And she said, well, no, I don't have any siblings. I'm the only one that survived birth. Oh, okay. Well, when you were 3 or 4, you played with a little spirit child. She said, yes, I did. And her name was Emma. And she started to cry.
Mm,
Her parents took the time to name all of the children that were not born
mm.
into this world. And one of them was Emma.
Wow.
And it was also natural. Just there's a bit of information for you. How that communication must have affected that woman's life to have confirmation after 35 or 40 years that what she experienced as a child was real.
Mm,
You see, I am not at all a natural medium. The spirit world literally had to smash me over the head to get me to wake up at age about 52, approximately.
so it's never too late.
No, it's not. It's never too late to become spiritual. It's never too late to become aware. of more than we are and our
Yeah.
perceptions of life.
That's interesting. And it's just going to lead me to something else. We're talking about trust, and something we touched on was ego. And I think there's confusion about ego. Ego can mean I'm really good, I'm really good. To me, ego is more about putting myself in it. So when I'm
Mhm.
connecting to the spirit world, it's not about what Kerry-Marie thinks or how I interpret it. It's about trusting, and I'm just like the channel in between. I'm the messenger. So, can you confirm what you mean about ego? Because you mentioned that to me at one point, because it's brought up a
Well,
lot with this work.
I know mediums who say I do not have an ego. I don't believe that for one second.
Mm,
We all
mm,
have an ego. An
yes.
ego is part of human nature. It's
Mm,
our being to defend ourselves and protect ourselves.
mm,
It's when we allow our ego to dominate the conversation that we get ourselves in trouble. And when we think that, oh, I've got this, I don't need to attune tonight, you know what's going to happen when you get up on the stage with that attitude? There's not going to be anybody there.
yeah.
Glenn Edwards went through that one night and he sat down. This is a story that I was told. He sat down and he had to think about it and he stood up about 20 minutes later and it was all fine because he was so humble to say, I'm sorry. I've left you out of the conversation. I've allowed my ego to dominate it.
Mm.
So we have to. Could you imagine how hard it was for me to learn to become humble?
Oh, you seem very humble. You seem really, really
I
humble.
am kind of now, kind of sort of, but back then, no, I got this. I know how to do this. It's like you're
Humbleness,
watching a soccer match or in Canada, hockey. It's like, oh, look at these guys fly. Fantastic. Well, no.
humbleness is such an attractive thing as well. When people are humble,
Well,
it's quite an attractive thing. It's just attractive quality as well.
sure. I can, yeah, I mean, you and I can say that as spiritualists, the average person on the street, oh, no, oh, s- wimpy, sensitive. That's what some people would say.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
we have to find our power and strength within our being with the support of the spirit world, with our understanding of God.
I love that.
That takes me to Paramahansa Yogananda and Kriya Yoga, which I studied for a time to help improve that spiritual connection. It made an incredible difference in my life. And I
Mm,
found that the more I explored my sense of spirituality, the more I began to understand and allow other people to explore who they are. I can't tell you how to be. I can't tell a student how to be, but hopefully I can give them some tools to find out where they need to be,
I love that.
not where they want to be, where they need to be.
I just heard some
So,
words from Spirit, never take us for granted.
no,
I just heard it
never.
then. Someone just came in and said, never take us for granted. I just heard it very strongly come in.
Well, our job as a medium is to help this world
Mm.
and help the other world.
Yes.
And if we disregard the needs of the other world, we haven't got anything.
Mm.
Absolutely nothing. It's not Kerry-Marie or Charlie the medium up on stage giving us fabulous information. We never get anything from the spirit world, in my opinion. We are given information,
We're
and
given
that
it.
is a privilege.
Yes. I find it very, when people, I sometimes when you're doing platform, I feel a bit judged. You know, how you can feel
Oh,
judged.
yes.
Yeah. And that
Yep.
bit I don't like. I find that a bit difficult, or even in a good way. Someone said to me about my recent show, it was the best they'd ever seen. And I thought, I don't like that because it feels like I'm being judged. With it was just that was being given the information from the spirit world that resonated with the people.
Mm. You know, you said earlier in this interview
Mm.
that you appreciated my mediumship way back then. And that way back then was probably 2013, 2014, somewhere in there. I didn't think myself as being a good medium at that time. I still marvel at the miracle. I
Yes.
don't judge myself. I might, I might from time to time judge other mediums who claim to be great, and I'm going, not for me, thank you. I'll move on. I've had to get away from being judgmental on myself and other people.
Oh, definitely.
Certainly something I need to work on personally.
I felt what it was with you, it wasn't a judgment, it's more just an appreciation.
Yeah.
It was an
Well,
appreciation of the authenticity of it because I could recognize that this person was being really authentic and true. And that's what resonated with me.
well, you see, we didn't get that kind of credit on the SNUI until COVID.
Right.
Many people, many people, Arthur Finley tutors included, you cannot develop online.
Right. Really?
That
Wow.
is, they've said that. There's a couple of people in Canada who still say that. I respectfully disagree because I'm the living proof.
Mm.
You see, I only had, and we were very blessed in Vancouver. For about 15 years, Eileen Davies would come for 2 weeks every year. I would take the beginners and the advanced class. But the rest of my year, I had to sit on my own. So what I have learned has I've learned that our earthly teachers, like Eileen, are wonderful guides. They're our earthly guides. But still, we need that connection to the spirit world so that we can properly represent them and speak for them, to become the voice of those who no longer have a voice.
I agree with you. And the other thing is that really interesting, one of my most amazing experiences I ever had on SNUI, and it was a gentleman from Germany. And I was sitting in my room and I connected, I could feel my own father's spirit. I could feel it so strong, my dad around me. And then the guy from Germany goes, "Oh, your father's here." And it's like, wow. And so it was incredible. Like, here I am sitting in New Zealand, he's sitting in Germany,
Mm.
and he can feel my father's presence, and so can I. And the message he gave was so important. And something we're talking about is our own power, our own development, our own spiritual relationship we have with ourselves. And I have a tendency, even now, and I have a tendency, a lot more back then, was to validate the opinion of others more than myself. And so people's opinions had this, it's a huge force for me, had a strong effect on me as a person, and it would weaken me. And so he gave me this message and he said, "Your father is saying to me that people have opinions and everybody has an opinion, but you're allowing these opinions to affect you, and they're only opinions." And he said to be solid within yourself because only you know that was right for you. And I just remember this anxiety I had just went and it was perfect. But that was on SNUI. And I was in New
Well,
Zealand and he's in Germany. And we both felt my
let,
dad.
let me tell you a story. There was another medium in New Zealand who's still part of the SNUI, very prominent in the SNUI, and he used to come to my classes. And he was busy at work while the class was on because of the time difference. He was in the middle of doing a communication when his phone rang and he looked at it and he said, "I am so sorry. I have to take this call." And I said, "It's okay. Go do what you need to do." He was in New Zealand. The recipient was in Montreal, and I'm in Vancouver. I linked in to that link and I gave the rest of the information to the lady in Montreal, and she accepted everything I said. And
Yes.
when he came back online about 5 minutes later, when we were wrapping up, I said, "Do you have anything that you'd like to add to that?" And he goes, "Oh, no, I don't want to try to follow that." You see, we can do double, we can tune in all around the world. It was always so amazing. When the
Very
SNUI
much
started,
so. Very
we
much
didn't
so.
understand, people, energy. Space time means nothing to the spirit world. Well, on the SNUI, we proved it. It
Oh,
doesn't mean anything.
absolutely. It doesn't mean a thing. That's those both really, really good examples because when I take a workshop, I've done double links. So I get a student up and they're trying to bring through a message, and then I step in and I can help them with it. I don't always, but if I have to, I can step in. It's incredible. I can link into that. But you can also do that online. Because I think there was a
Mhm,
point where I was doing SNUI teaching as well at one point.
mhm.
And yeah, so definitely it's just energy, isn't it?
Well, it is just energy, but I want to come back to your point about what is the ego. So we get all pumped up. We have a really good demonstration. We're feeling fantastic,
Mm,
and we let it go to our heads. And then
right.
our ego comes out. How good am I? How good am I?
Yeah, yeah.
There was in back in the 1980s and 90s and early 2000s, I can recall some tutors offering assessments, and they would tell you what you were going to become in the spiritual world. And I thought, wow, you're going to tell me what you think I might be good at?
Right.
And that would say to me, well, I might not be any good at anything else. So I don't think I should
Yes.
interfere with someone else's progress by telling them what I think of what they should do. Now, if someone
It's
did come to me,
controlling. It's controlling, isn't it?
well, yes, it's controlling and putting the medium on a pedestal.
Yeah.
Some mediums used to really feel like they were on a pedestal. In
Mm.
fact, the lady who ran that church where I started, she went to that Arthur Findlay College in 2008 with us as our leader. And I can remember asking her, I said, "Oh, what class are you in?" And she said, "Oh, well, I don't need to be in a class. I'm a developed medium."
Right.
Wow, it says it all. She stopped learning about 1990. Here we were 18 years later,
You're
and
always
she hadn't
learning.
progressed.
Yeah, always learning. I
You
mean, and
know,
it's about putting restrictions on yourself, isn't it?
you really do restrict yourself because you're saying, well, I know how to do this. Okay, you can do that. Sure, you can. But you could do more if you
Mm.
were on a path of progress.
It's really interesting. I'm not artistic. I'm not very good at drawing or artistic. And there's one point I went to Arthur Fundy College and I went into a deep attunement. And
Mhm.
I saw a Japanese lady, very strong in a kimono. And I also saw another gentleman who had a white veil and a gold band. And I had an assessment with Eileen Davies, and she described both these guides. I couldn't believe it. I think, wow, it was incredible. But one of the things that stood out for me was so strange because I started going through a stage, and I'm not artistic. I started getting drawn to psychic art. And she said to me that this Japanese guide's come in to actually help you with psychic art, which I did a little bit. Just dabbled in it, but isn't that amazing?
It is amazing because we don't know what our potential is. We
No.
don't know the areas that we can use our mind and try and figure, well, I want to be an artist. Oh, I want to be a trance medium. I hear a lot of that these days. I want to be a trance medium. Well, you're not very developed at regular mediumship. I don't think you should do that. But it's free will.
It is
It's
free
free
will.
will for people to choose.
It's always
And
free will.
I honestly believe for myself that the process that I use of the power, the attunement, the focus that that creates, for me is the right way to do it. And that's what I teach. Now, is it the right way for you? I don't know that. But I do know that I have, in the last 12 years, I've helped at least 30 or 40 students get their platform accreditation through the SNU. And I know I did mine online. I was the second person in the world to do it online. And it was very traumatic, but I made it. And then once I had achieved the respect of those people who are on the board of assessors who had, 40, 50 years experience each times four. When I achieved their respect, I realized, yes, I believe I can do this. And then about a year later, I knew I could do it. But
Wow.
I know that I have to follow my process.
The
So
process.
for
So when
each
you
one of
do,
us,
yeah, yeah. Sorry to
go ahead.
interrupt you, but do you listen to music when you do your sitting in the power, or you just sit in
No,
silence?
nothing.
Right,
I don't want anything.
right.
I know when I was at the college in February for a tutor's course, and a lady from Germany who was more interested in healing did a sitting in the power attunement all as one with spirit guides. And I don't like that. I really didn't like it. And I said so afterwards, and she got very angry at me. But then we had to do our group presentations, and a couple of names you will probably know: Yolanda Van Kampen
Yes.
and Coral Ryder from early SNUI days were there.
Mm.
Two people that I believe eventually will become Arthur Finley tutors. Very, very good at what they do. And out of all the people that were there, they picked me to be the medium for the presentation. And I had followed a way of doing things that I didn't like, but man, did it work. So that opened myself up to, well, do I want some music in there? Do you want to invite the guides? How do you feel? What's going to work? What does the other world want? It's not what I want. And this is what I mean about myself being an unnatural medium. I had to train. See, I had to train myself. Right, Charlie. Don't say
So,
that.
so you did it with
They
music.
trained me.
You did it with music and guides.
Yeah, she
Yeah,
did it. I listened. I didn't like it, but it worked fantastically.
there we go. It always works for
Yeah.
me. I love the music.
Well, for me, I want that empty space
Yeah,
between my ears.
yeah. Simple. I
And
hear the
that,
word for you, simple. I just heard simple come in for you.
yeah, keep it simple.
Keep it
Keep it
simple.
simple because we've got to create the focus. When I get up to demonstrate now, my heartbeat doesn't skip a beat. I don't get nervous. I'm not afraid. The only time I might experience fear is when I don't follow my own process.
Wow. You know your process, don't you? So you sit in the power and you attune and you get up on platform and they're just there.
Yeah,
Sounds
pretty
less
much.
sounds less exhausting as well.
Not really, because you're only doing it in small bits.
That's what I mean. It's not exhausting. That's what I'm saying. It's not sort of you don't get so, I can get myself worked up before I go on platform, but your simple
Oh,
process
okay.
sounds
Sorry.
less exhausting. Yeah, lot less exhausting.
Well, and perhaps you need that though. When I talk about my friend Eileen, she's been seeing the spirit world since she was a little girl.
Mm,
Well, I didn't have that privilege. It came to me the hard way through the loss of my sister. And what a blessing it's turned into being. You
So
see,
this, yes, sorry.
now I understand that there is no death.
No,
And that changes everything. You know you're going to survive. You don't know exactly where you will be in the next world, but you know that through spiritualism, which accepts science, accepts physics, we're likely to be in a place of harmonious energy. Whether that's a wonderful place or a sad place, we don't know yet, but we'll be with like minded people.
it sounds pretty happy to me from what I hear.
Well,
Or
it
what I hear
seems to
from
be, doesn't
spirit,
it?
not from other people, what I hear from spirit, they seem pretty happy. And I'm hearing and
Mm-hmm.
butterflies. I just heard and butterflies. I don't know why I heard that. I don't know
And
why I
what
got.
was that word?
I just said it feels pretty beautiful is what I heard. And then I heard spirit say to me, and butterflies, they said to me.
And butterflies.
That
Okay.
just came in
You
out of the
just
blue. Pardon?
Funny story. Sitting by the pool one early day. I'm sitting there minding my own business, and I heard the voice. I hear the voice every once in a while, and it speaks audibly into my ear. And it said, "This is all about bongo pie." Okay, what's that? So I went into the house and I Googled bongo pie. The only reference that I could find to bongo pie was from a book written, I think it was 1890. And I don't remember the name of the book, but it is a Maori term, ancient Maori language for glad tidings.
Wow.
Yeah,
I love it when
this
they
is
give
all
you
about glad.
their tidings. I love it when they give you things that you don't understand, and then you find out
Mhm.
later what it means. I've had a lot of experience, a lot, and it's really interesting. You talk about the voice because I say to my children, "Oh, I heard the voice," and I don't know who it is. I just hear the voice. It's exactly what I refer it to.
And the most recent time that I heard it was quite different. A couple of months ago, my youngest daughter told us that she's pregnant. And as we're giving her a big hug and her boyfriend hug and all that, I heard it's a boy. Now, we're not going to find out until December the 9th.
Oh, you know,
So,
but you do know when you get there. I've been given the same information about my children to say exactly the same, and you just have to trust it because you know that it's come
yeah,
from a pure source. Yeah, it's pure. If
so we'll test.
if they asked you, you'd get it wrong because you start guessing. Your
I
mind gets
would.
something away.
I would get it wrong.
If people ask me, I can't get it, but yeah, definitely. I've had the same experience.
And we'll see if it proves to be true.
It will be.
I expect it to be.
I want to go
I got a
high
50
five.
50 chance.
No, it will be. It will be. So for you, do you do readings? Just want to say how we can get hold of you. Do actually do readings for people online or in person?
Yep. Hmm.
So how do they
I
get
do
hold of
both.
you? How can people get hold of Charlie in Vancouver?
Oh, you can find me on Facebook holding a little baby wearing a hat, Charlie Seaman. My email address is charlieseaman@gmail.com. And I will give you exactly what I am given
Right,
by the other
okay.
world.
That's how they get hold of you. And they can make an appointment with you, Zoom and in person?
Well, in person for New Zealand would be difficult.
No, but I'm just saying anybody, because this is like an international
Yeah,
podcast. So you might get people in
that's
Vancouver
true.
that and
Yeah,
they come and
in
see you or
person is fine.
and Zoom as well. And they can actually reach you through snui.org. Is that the address?
Yeah, snui.org.uk. And
.uk.
I do a class on Saturdays called Spirit Progress Circle.
Wonderful. That sounds great. So that would be Saturday, Vancouver time. And what time Vancouver time is it?
Vancouver time, 8 a.m. Saturday morning,
Okay. That's good to
which I
know.
believe would be Sunday about noon your time, I think. I'm not
Something like
sure.
that. I'd have to look that up.
No,
No, I don't think so. I think we've got that round. It
I
might even
can't.
be midnight.
No, it's probably earlier than that. It's very confusing going over that date line. I've never flown over it, so I don't have any
It is
concept of.
because well, I'm on Saturday this morning, you're on Friday, going to Friday evening. So you will. Well, Charlie,
Mm,
thank you so much for your time. It's been good to get a
oh,
little
thank you.
bit known about you. And I'm going to myself, I think that I need to discipline myself a bit more by sitting in the power and attuning, make that more regular than I have been. And you explained it very nicely. So thank you for that.
Mhm.
And people know how to get a hold of you. And we talk again soon. I'll just
I
finish here.
appreciate the opportunity and blessings to you for what you do for
Oh,
this world and the other world.
oh, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you, Charlie. Thanks.
Thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed my time with Charlie. It was very inspirational and informative. Charlie talked about how he came into the spirit world and became a medium,
how he's part of a male world and how it's predominantly a female world, and how he guided himself through this. He shared some very interesting stories with us. One thing and a takeaway I got from it was about the ego. We all have an ego, and when you're working as a medium, how important it is just to put that ego aside and to be a pure channel for the spirit world, to give their messages from them through the medium to the person receiving this. His spiritual truth to me was also about the fact that we are all individuals, we're all unique, and we're all different. He discussed about sitting in the power, and he talked about how important that is and how he does that. And this is something you could take away with you and could practice. Once sitting in the power, he then attunes to spirit. And this is a spiritual truth. Charlie discussed how he does this regularly every time he's working. It's a routine for him to follow. If you've enjoyed this podcast and you like it, please like. Can you subscribe to our YouTube channel to help the channel? Not only that, if you subscribe to our channel, Spiritual Truths, you'll be informed every time a new podcast is released to make it easier for you. Blessings and love, Kerry-Marie.